Hi guys, and welcome back to Alejandro HD. It's been some time. Took some time off to do life things, but now I'm back, and I have a shaved face, and it looks like I've got a big double chin. But well, that is true. But anyway, so I have just finished Life is Strange: True Colors, third installment, or well, if we're not talking prequels and DLCs and so on, but yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, and I actually wanted to talk about the whole Life is Strange franchise. Give you my overall opinions on all of them because why not? Um, so I'll start off with Alex's story, and I'll work backwards. I'll do Alex, and I'll do Life is Strange 2 with Daniel and Sean, then the first one with Max, and then I'm going to do the Before the Storm and Wavelengths and Captain Spirit. So quite a lot to get through. So my overall thoughts with Life is Strange 3 was I was impressed. I thought it came a long way from the Max and Chloe era of the one episode per day situation they had, and obviously went from Don't Nod to Deck 9. So overall, graphics wise, gameplay, how everything looks and feels, so much better. But I mean, that's to be expected. It's not 2015 anymore, and I know they've got the remastered editions, but we'll talk about that in a bit as well. So yeah. So generally, overall, very good. A few things that not so much disappointed me, but kind of fell a bit flat. Of course, where the gameplay was a bit loose. Like we with a lot of dialogue, with a lot of cutscenes, which was good to explain the character of Alex and her brother, and what she went through and all that sort of stuff, which was good. But there was not a lot of actual gameplay. I felt like it was more just sort of very cautiously doing the things need to do, and then that's the end of that. Um, so that's one thing. And another thing, and I think there has to be somebody at Deck 9 in the production, or like a software engineer or someone somewhere who's got a massive love for Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, right? Don't get me wrong. I don't hate it. I don't mind nerd stuff, but this is the second time, for Before the Storm and now like True Colors, we've had an entire segment dedicated to this role play action thing. Oh, actually, no, because it's also in Wavelengths as well, but we'll get to that a bit. Like, I understand from Before the Storm's point of view, it was like Steph and Mikey's thing, so fair enough. Like, that was a good little thing, for Chloe to get involved in, but to have it again, it's been done. It's a bit. It felt like a bit like it was overcut. I mean, I don't hate the episode. Like, it was like the third part where you and the wee boy Evan or Nathan or Ethan go around doing your stuff. It was okay, but it was a bit. Yeah, it's a bit shoehorned in. I mean, they could have maybe thought of doing something else. But other than that, I thought it was solid. Um, the town, the town in Colorado is it's a bit airy fairy, a bit too good to be true. Like the fanciful high street with the picturesque American version of what America thinks it is. I mean, given like what we know about Alex and her struggles and stuff, like you do feel happiness or a certain sense of relief for the character who has came from this really horrible background to finally get into somewhere which is a bit nicer. Um, Plot twists galore. As to be expected with Life is Strange. I thought the phone mechanisms were a lot more advanced. The fact you could actually reply to other characters with different responses rather than just let the character send the texts and stuff. That was pretty nice little add-on. The power itself, the emotions thing, I was really worried about that. I thought, oh no, well, how is this gonna work? Like she's gonna be controlling people's emotions or hearing people's thoughts and stuff. Like, but no, they done it well. They done it well. They really they really let the player take advantage of how to control a situation. It wasn't just a for your own advantage. Like, I mean, you could have done, but there was the whole: do you just let things slide or do you intervene? I thought that was pretty good. Quite a bit like a callback to Max's power with the rewind, although it was a bit more like you could actually, you know, that was the whole point. Like with Max's power, it was to completely change events to how you wanted to see them. Whereas in Alex's case, she was more um, like it was more of a moral. You had more of a moral compass, I thought, with Alex than Max, because Max was like, I think as well with Max, she was a younger character, so her thoughts were probably more impulsive, whereas Alex is a bit more matured and she's thinks things through a bit more. So I like that. I like that sort of define thing. Like with Life is Strange 2, for example, you don't even get to play as the guy with the powers, but you get to play as the brother, and there's that sense there of the mature the mature person taking over and making the big decisions, even though he doesn't even have the power. And the same goes for Alex. Like she is in herself mature, whereas Max was sort of by herself and had to figure things out. Well, not really by Chloe, but she was even worse than her. So yeah, I liked that dynamic of it. I liked how thought out the character was. So overall, good game. Solid. I'd say it's a 7.5 out of 10. This graphics were a bit like The Sims. I felt um, just reminded me of the Sims characters. There's not really anything about that. So yeah, working backwards, as I said. So we had Wavelengths is sort of like before that. So Wavelengths, a little DLC. You get to play as Steph. Nice little tidbit there. Nothing really too heavy. Just how she ended up in the little town. How she got the job as the DJ and in the record store. And yeah, no, I thought that was all really well put together. Nothing too um, nothing too major. It wasn't like it was. There was no. I mean, like because we already know the story with Alex, and and how if you choose to be with Steph, or if you choose to be Steph's friend, kind of how Wavelengths and True Colors come together. It's a nice little bridge the gap. So nah, I wouldn't. I don't think I can even rate Wavelengths. Not because it was bad or anything. Just it wasn't really. It was more like an add-on to True Colors. So it's kind of like the same. So it falls in the 7.5 out of 10 category. You don't really do anything other than just do your job. It was a bit laborious at times. I mean, I like the little dating app that you got with Steph and going on dates that you don't even get to see. But yeah, no, I thought it was a nice little touch. They didn't have to do it, and they did it, and it was quite nice. Moving on from there, we had, I suppose we would say, Life is Strange 2. The thing with Life is Strange 2, it was very long, not in a bad way. It was just there was a lot to get through. There was a lot of exposition, a lot of um, it's just it had a lot of heavy um, what's the word I'm looking for? Heavy topics. Like there was the political situation. Like it was a bit of a politically charged racial thing for some parts, which was good. Which was good. I liked it. I liked the whole getting to Mexico to escape. Try to find a better life. Um, I did like the callbacks to the first Life is Strange game, as well as in True Colors, but you don't really see it in True Colors. It's more like in Wavelengths actually. But no, like the little callbacks, seeing David in the campsite was pretty cool. Seeing him with a ponytail, being a wee hippie, um, and also what else did I like about the second one? Um, I did like there was more than just two endings. Like there was multiple endings. Like like Sean and Daniel, it could have went so many different ways. One could have, they could have, one of them could have definitely ended up in Mexico. The other one could end up in jail. Both could have ended up in Mexico. One could have ended up in prison. One of them could be dead. It's so many different things. And I just generally like that. The whole thing with the Jesus camp and all that, and his mum and everything, it was a wee bit like, oh god. But I think that was good in a sense of showing us how mental America can be, like with this stuff, like with its this whole religious aspect to it. I liked, I really liked it when they were sort of camping with those hippies. That was a really nice little thing. Like, and they were at the lake and all that sort of stuff. It was all lovely, little brotherly bonds and all that sort of stuff. And how like small choices really could affect how Daniel, like he would react, and his power would make everything go crazy and stuff. And the soundtrack as well. The soundtrack to Life is Strange 2, one of my favorites. I think the first Life is Strange was my favorite soundtrack, but there were some really good songs in Life is Strange 2, and when I heard the streets, and when Sean's in his room, that was quite a nostalgia trip for me because I like the streets. So for Life is Strange 2, I'll give it an 8. It's very plot heavy and there's a lot to go through. It's not a simple 2-minute game that you really have to sit. So I like that about it. I actually do. Graphics wise, on point. I did like the aspect of like how all characters in Life is Strange have their own little thing. Sean's was drawn, and I like that. I liked how you could draw things and all that sort of stuff. Um, And then, so the little DLC, or not DLC, it was more like a demo, Captain Spirit, The Adventures of Captain Spirit. That was very, very sort of hard to play, really. Emotionally charged. It really, really was. Like, I think when you've got like themes of abuse and themes of like neglect and all that, and showing it through a child's eyes, that's really hard to convey in a game, I think. And I think that they done it super, super tasteful and really well put together, because they could have really made an absolute mess of that. And sort of linking Chris's life with Sean and Daniel's later on down the line in Life is Strange 2, well done. With Chris doesn't really have any powers, much like Steph. Chris is just like a normal guy, but we've got like a little tidbit in his life, a little field there. Um, I won't really talk too much about that. You just have to play that one. It's not really like the second or third actual full games. Like Wavelengths, like Steph's story. It's a little thing. I think it's just to, like, tide. It was to tide us over before Life is Strange 2, and there was a lot of. I remember when before Life is Strange 2 came out, there was a lot of things like, oh, is Chris going to be the hero, or is he going to be the villain, or what's going to happen with this little boy? And we do get to we find out what actually happens with them in Life is Strange 2, but is it this? You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Moving on. I'm trying to get through these promptly, but not too promptly. I want to keep people interested. The first Life is Strange, because Before the Storm we'll do at the end. But the first Life is Strange for me is something that, like, on first playthrough, like, you can never get an experience like that. Like that game, I hadn't had those types of like vibes from a game since a game like Heavy Rain. I mean, I've already done a review on Life is Strange, the first one. I've played like a good portion of it. I really need to get back into that, but whatever. Um, it just sticks with you. You really get grounded with Max's story, and yeah, I mean the ending's a bit like you really only had two choices. And one was either like how you could do one or like the very drastic other, and then that was it. A bit, you know. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, I can't even remember what I gave the first Life is Strange, and the other video. Probably give it like a 9 or a 10. Probably stick to that. Um, Gameplay, the graphics were a bit rubbish, but it was 2015. We all had like i3 laptops at that point, so nobody can blame us. The soundtrack, I actually bought the soundtrack. I still have the soundtrack. I actually bought it in CD form. That's how old it is. And I remember getting it. I was so excited. Like, yeah, it's got the CD, and it's yeah, um, it does fall short in places. Given it, like, I've played through it a lot. Like I've had all the endings. I've had all the, I've got it on platinum. So I know how it all ends, and I know how it all works. So I think like replayability is a really not that great. Not that great for any of these games, apart from Life is Strange 2, because you've got so many different endings. Whereas like, True Colors and the first one, there's only so many. There's only really so many endings. Well, there's only two endings in the first one, and then in True Colors, I've only played through it twice, and you know it's kind of similar. So replayability not the best, but if you're a fan of these types of games, then choices make decisions. You're going to want to try and do every single thing, unlock every single dialogue. I mean, that's what I did. And then lastly, Before the Storm. Now, Before the Storm was a very interesting game to me. This was Deck Nine taking over from Don't Nods. This was their first sort of little project before they took on Life is Strange 2. I think it's hard because we have a lot of world building with Chloe, learning about how she coped after her dad died and David coming in, and we had our mum, Joyce. I'm going to call her Peggy Sue. You she looks a bit like a Peggy Sue with a little southern accent. No, but and then the whole Rachel Amber thing. We got some disclosure. We got some closure on that. We got some, like, they gave us what Chloe and Rachel's relationship were supposed to be, like in its truest form. How Rachel wasn't like a good person. Like, I think that's pretty obvious from playing Life is Strange 1. You sort of, she wasn't the best person for Chloe, but she was probably the only person for Chloe. And then that ties into Steph as well. And what we found out in Wavelengths was that Steph and Chloe were actually quite close, but we never really. I mean, there was. That's the only issue I have with Before the Storm. Was it gave us a lot. Like, it gave us, like, Nathan Prescott before he met Jefferson. We got um Steph, and we got Drew and Mikey. That whole thing. It's not bad, but I think it's a bit like Monsters Inc. University. That's a weird analogy, but stick with me, right? So, if you've ever watched Monsters Inc., the first one, and then obviously the prequel when they're at college, Monsters Inc. University, there's a little thing where Mike and Sully get the job as a postman in Monsters Inc. building, and the abominable snowman is their boss, right? And he makes a joke, oh, if you throw away your letters or you tamper with stuff, it gets management, will banish you. And then in the Monsters Inc., the main film, they get banished and they meet the Domino Snowman, but there's no connection. They're not like, hey man, like they don't like know each other because obviously this was years before, like when they first made it. So that's a little bit. I mean, like, if in the original film, Mikey was like, oh my god, you got banished, but they didn't even do that, and there was no explanation why he was banished. He was just there in the human world. Going back to that point, going back to the Steph Chloe situation, you know, we know that Steph left Arcadia Bay after the storm had happened from Wavelengths. That's why she's in Colorado. But what we don't know, well, not like entirely why she's there. She had a band and whatever, but there was no mention of Steph through the whole first game. Steph was mentioned a lot in Before the Storm, and then she's mentioned in True Colors, and that's where the connection comes in. But before that, there's nothing. There's no, like, well, Life is Strange 2 has its own thing, but there was nothing there. There was no connection, and that's really, really annoying. Like, they could have even had one of the little crew that Victoria has in the first one. You know what I mean? Like, they could have had somebody that we already know as a Steph character, and then everything would have been perfect. But they didn't have anyone in the first game like Steph, who was Steph, right? And that's fine because they needed some world building, and they they didn't know. I think in the first, you know, they were just like a little production company, and then it blew up, got massive. So that's my only little issue with. But it seems like I'm talking about it for age. It's my only little issue with Before the Storm. That and the Dungeons and Dragons thing, you know, that's really overdone and whatever. I give it a 6. I give Before the Storm a 6 out of 10. I didn't like the back talk thing. I think that was just shoehorned in. You know, it's like there's so much. There's it's difficult with prequels because there's only so much you can do because we know how it's going to end up anyway because we played the first one, so we know that Chloe's rebellious. You know, like the whole drama of will David stay with me? Will he, you know, move? You know, like that. We already know that happens anyway, so it's a bit like unnecessary drama, but it's good for filler, I suppose. So yeah, so 6 out of 10. First one like 10 or 9. Second one 8. Well, True Colors 7. That's the take off that. And yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and post a video because it's been a month. Can't believe it's been a month. But cool, if you stuck with me this far, awesome. Well, awesome. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys, and yeah, it's good to be back.